And there's some breaking news coming in on top of World Today this evening. The decision of the case that was taken by Harvard to court against Donald Trump administration. A U.S. judge has now blocked Trump administration's decision to bar foreign students' enrollment at Harvard. Breather for Harvard University, a big blow to Donald Trump. This is after Harvard filed a lawsuit in the U.S. District Court in Massachusetts, and the judge promptly and swiftly has decided that for now he is going to hold on to that decision by the Trump administration to ban enrollment of students at Harvard University. This was a huge development. Not only was it impacting international students, but also those international students who were already enrolled at Harvard University in the United States of America. The big question is whether this will lead to the revocation that Trump administration has decided on the SEVP status of Harvard University, whether that is going to be impacted, and those 7,000 students who are there at Harvard in the United States of America will be allowed to stay or not. Now let's talk about the background of this entire story. It is, once again, Donald Trump versus Harvard University, ratcheting up White House efforts to conform practices in academia to President Donald Trump's policies. On Thursday, the U.S. Homeland Security Department revoked Harvard University's ability to enroll international students starting from the 2025-2026 academic year. Harvard University sued Trump administration on Friday in response. And now the decision has come about to hold on that decision of Trump administration. That's the news that's just coming in. Huge relief for Harvard University for now. We will have to see how the Trump administration is going to react to this decision by the court. But in a complaint filed in Boston Federal Court, Harvard called the revocation a blatant violation of the U.S. Constitution and other federal laws, and had an immediate and devastating effect on the university and more than 7,000 visa holders, that is, international students studying at Harvard, and many who are waiting to travel to the United States of America only to be enrolled and to study or start their academic year at Harvard University. Now, Trump administration's decision has also forced current international students to look for transfer to other schools or lose their legal status. Now, we'll have to wait and see how this decision of the court really impacts these international students, because they have started looking out. U.S. government has accused Harvard University of fostering violence, anti-Semitism, and collaborating with the Chinese Communist Party, that's CPC. Harvard University stated that the decision followed Harvard's refusal to provide requested information about certain foreign student visa holders. About 788 Indian students were admitted to Ivy League University in the last academic year of 24-25. In the past 5 years alone, there has already been a steady rise of Indian students securing admission in the prestigious college in Cambridge. In fact, after China and Canada, India sends maximum students to Harvard University. Indians stand at 9% of student population in the college. With the admission timeline for the new session drawing close, this order by Trump administration could have really major financial implications for the university, but the federal court now coming out and holding this ban is a relief. We'll have to wait and see how that impacts the SEVP status of Harvard University.
One of the most aspirational institutions of education in the world is now possibly closed to international students. In a major blow, the Trump administration has yanked Harvard University's authorization to enroll international students. In what is being seen as a major escalation and a financial blow in the government's pressure campaign against the most prominent university in the United States of America, the federal government revoked Harvard's Student and Exchange Visitor Program certification, meaning foreign students can no longer attend the university via that program. Existing international students must transfer or lose their legal status. Anyone of F or J visa is now prohibited from attending the college. In its statement, the Department of Homeland Security accused Harvard's leadership of creating an unsafe campus environment. It said the anti-American, pro-terror agitators had been permitted to harass and even physically assault individuals, including many Jewish students.
Foreign student visas are a privilege, not an entitlement. In particular, students cannot enter the United States if they provide support for designated terrorist organizations. They wouldn't be allowed to enter the United States. The Trump administration wants to remove students who've provided support to designated terrorist organizations like Hamas, and they want to be able to know which students have done that. So they want access to disciplinary records and to videos of protests.
At Harvard, almost 6,800 students, 27% of the entire student body, comes from other countries. This is considerably higher than 19.6% in 2006. Like many American universities, it relies on their tuition payments, which are often full fee, several times higher than what American students pay. In 2024, nearly 22% of Harvard's income was from the fee structure. A foreign student pays up to $87,000 a year in fees. This is inclusive of the tuition, boarding, and lodging. At the university are currently 788 Indian students registered at Harvard's academic program. The Trump administration has, however, left a window open, saying Harvard can be allowed international students again if it provides information on 6 issues within 72 hours. First, all details of illegal activities by non-immigrant students in past 5 years. Second, video evidence of violent activities by these students. Third, video evidence of threats made to others by non-immigrant students again. Fourth, or details of deprivation of rights of other students. Fifth, all disciplinary records of non-immigrant students for past 5 years. And sixth, all evidence of protest activities by students on the campus. The Harvard University has hit back, calling the government's move unlawful and said the school is committed to maintaining its ability to host international students.
I know that people think Harvard has over $50 billion in endowment and they're, have this status and this history. That's all true, but the federal government is bigger and richer and will prevail here in this fight. And I think Harvard understands that. And really all that they're doing is positioning for a better deal. And so the litigation that Harvard has been pursuing is just to try to get a better agreement with the administration.
The Donald Trump administration has already pulled $9 billion in federal research funding from the Harvard and threatened to revoke its tax-exempt status, citing concerns about anti-Semitism and DEI. The order is also warning to other colleges to fall in line. US universities have more than 1 million international students in total who contribute nearly $44 billion to the American economy. Among them, more than half are from India and China. While Harvard is expected to meet the 6 conditions laid out by the Trump administration, students are faced with increased uncertainty. Bureau Report, Business Today Television.
And to discuss this and more, I'm being joined by Dr. Karan Gupta, an educationist and alumnus of Harvard University himself. Dr. Gupta, let's just talk about the focus over here, although there is a decision that has come to hold on to the Trump decision, a relief for Harvard University. But with the decision of the Trump administration, what is President Trump intending to do with Harvard University and the international students?
Thank you, Geeta, for having me. As a Harvard Business School alumnus and an international education consultant, I do recognize the concern and uncertainty this recent development causes for Indian students. Harvard has over 6,800 international students and 700 from India. Harvard has been a top destination for global talent, and the recent revocation of Harvard's SEVP status has caused very serious implications, particularly for those on F1 visas. Now, what this means for current students is that without the certification, the students cannot stay on campus anymore. Harvard cannot issue or maintain the I-20 forms that are required for students to maintain their valid student visa status. And these students have to transfer to other institutions if they want to stay in the US and they want to stay compliant with US immigration law. So this has caused a lot of anguish among students right now. What's even more concerning is that this loss of status affects students in the OPT status, or the optional practical training status. As you know, students rely on this status for earlier career development. So imagine there's someone in the US working since 2 years, because you can get a STEM OPT for 3 years. That student's STEM OPT will also be terminated. So this is what's caused a lot of confusion in the US right now.
Right. Karan, you've been interacting with students. A lot of them who are applying or who've already applied have gotten through Harvard. What are the concerns and worries of students specific to India and parents, of course?
Okay, so we have a couple of situations here. One is we have students who've already got admission to Harvard. Some of them already have their visas. Now, as of today, those visas are not valid anymore. So that's the primary concern, that can the student travel to the US to study at Harvard this fall? And the answer is, as of today, no. Till this issue is not sorted, till Harvard doesn't get a temporary restraining order from the courts, right now, the visa that students have got for Harvard is not valid. The second concern is students who are going to apply for visas, who already have visa appointments. They need to cancel those appointments, because if they land up at a US consulate or embassy, they're not going to get a visa for Harvard because their I-20 is not valid anymore. So students have to cancel existing visa appointments. The third problem that Indian students are facing, the ones who are on campus at Harvard, they're not in status anymore, and they need to transfer to other universities. And finally, the Indian students on OPT, they need to again look at other options of getting back in status, because currently they're not in valid immigration status anymore.
Dr. Karan Gupta, thank you so much for joining us here on the network and explaining as to what is really happening on the ground and how worried are students and parents alike. Now, in Bangladesh, what started as a student uprising has now turned into a full-blown power tussle at the very top. As Dhaka delays elections, the army chief has issued a rare public warning to the interim chief, Muhammad Yunus, one that could reshape the country's political future.
A quiet power struggle is unfolding in Bangladesh between the chief advisor of the interim government, Muhammad Yunus, and the country's army chief, General Waqar-uz-Zaman. At a recent address inside Dhaka cantonment, General Zaman demanded elections to be held by December. This was a direct pushback to Nobel laureate economist turned chief advisor of the caretaker government, Muhammad Yunus. His interim government is under fire for displaying the polls and allegedly clinging to power.
Interim government headed by Professor Muhammad Yunus is running into a lot of trouble, a lot of problems with the army chief, General Waqar-uz-Zaman, who actually, after the ouster of PM Hasina's government, put in place this very interim government, and he justified it by the doctrine of necessity. He said there is no government in place, this is not how a country can run. But he was very clear on one particular point, that this government is an interim government. It has no real basis in the Bangladesh Constitution.
Muhammad Yunus's interim government was formed to fill the vacuum after the fall of Sheikh Hasina's government on 5th August last year. Student-led protests drove the Awami League government out of power. Students brought Muhammad Yunus to lead the interim government, who now is accused of clinging to power through sympathy. Reportedly, Muhammad Yunus has expressed his desire to resign, but other members of the interim government refused to let him go. The army chief Waqar-uz-Zaman is Sheikh Hasina's nephew and is now accused of using the chaos to consolidate power. General Waqar is a seasoned strategist. He once served as Sheikh Hasina's principal staff officer, helped shape Bangladesh's military policy, and earned his credentials through UN peacekeeping, army reform, and international defense education. from overseeing army operations as Chief of General Staff to receiving the Army Medal of Glory and the Extraordinary Service Medal. Zaman's record speaks of discipline, professionalism and loyalty, not to politicians but to the Constitution.
General Walker is very clear about one point. We've spoken to him at different points of time, and he says that I am not interested in a military takeover because those military generals who took power directly in Bangladesh ended up in a very sorry state of affairs. General Zia was killed. General Ershad was thrown out of power by popular agitation in great disgrace. And even General Moinu Ahmed, who backed the caretaker government in 2007-8, had to go out in considerable disgrace. He can't stay in the country. He's gone away to the US. So he is very clear that I am interested in maintaining law and order and getting an elections done. Then my soldiers go back to the barrack.
The latest tug of war for power between General Waqar and Muhammad Yunus ignited from a humanitarian corridor proposal in the Rakhine district for the Rohingya refugees of Myanmar. While Yunus's government pushed for the humanitarian corridor plan, General Zaman has refused to green-light it. Instead demanded for a commitment to hold election by end of the year. Tensions mount around the residence of Army Chief Sena Niwas. Rallies have been banned. Reports suggest Islamic groups like Jamaat-e-Islami are piggybanking on the student movement. Muhammad Yunus's team calls the rift between the two current top leaders of the state as rumors. They claim the army chief and the chief advisor share a good relationship and meet regularly. Bureau Report, India Today Global.
And that's a wrap on this edition of World Today.